Hello, this is James Barkell, and you're listening to the Coach Doctor Podcast. In this episode, I talked to Beth Whaanga. Beth has degrees in nursing, forensic mental health and criminology, and criminal justice. However, she is also one of 5 female coaches in Australia with a Level 3 coaching certificate and has been coaching rugby union at a number of levels on the athlete development pathway. In this podcast, Beth discusses the support network she has formed in coaching, some of the battles being a female rugby coach in a male-dominated industry, and her roles within a number of different teams that she has coached. Beth is a coach who is always striving to improve through a variety of professional development opportunities and learning from peers, and is definitely a coach to keep an eye on for the future. Beth's main messages are to know your self-worth, go out and ask for things, don't expect things to happen, and don't be the exception, be exceptional. I hope you enjoy this chat with Beth as much as I did. So Beth, you've got degrees in nursing, forensic mental health, and criminology and criminal justice. How did you get involved in rugby coaching?
I got involved in rugby coaching through my dad. I grew up at Wellingbar Austinville Rugby Union Club on the far north coast of New South Wales, and my dad was the local club president there. I grew up at War. I love War very, very much. They've been a great support to me over the years and still are a massive, massive support to me. We went to their anniversary dinner, Dad and I and my mum, a couple of weeks ago, and it was really good to see just that group of people who I've known since I was a little kid who helped me love the game, like just really love it. My dad was the local president there for a really long time. And so, Tuesday, Thursday nights, we were down there setting up fields or cooking barbecues or running around with a footy or helping him mark lines on the weekend. So it's literally just been my life. And, my dad was a referee as well. My dad played when I was a kid. And so it's been this foundation for myself and my brothers and sisters that we're a rugby mad family. That's how I got involved in rugby. Obviously played as well. I still try and play sometimes, which is a mistake. Ask anyone who knows me well, and I always end up with some sort of broken bone. But I do love it very much. I was a halfback.
Fantastic. So do you feel like your knowledge from, I guess, your nursing or forensic health background has helped in your coaching in any way?
Definitely. A big part of what I do is reading people's body languages and responses for my job. So I also see patterns in behaviours, and that makes me a tactically good coach because I can see things on the field as they happen or as they progress. But it's also given me the ability to understand athletes as a whole. So I just don't look at their performance on the field. I look at what's happening in their lives, how they're interacting with other people, how they're responding to their teammates, to their officials, to their coaches, and really get to know them because we need to start looking at athletes as in an overall perspective, not just their athletic performance. So I think because I've come from that mental health background, it's given me that that in-depth knowledge into how to best bring out good interactions with others, but also how to build rapport with those that I'm working with, not just in a coach-player perspective, but also those interpersonal relationships with their families and, their support networks, and help understand what they need to get the best out of them. But also within a coaching perspective, so collaboration with other coaches and how we can use our strengths to work together to get the best possible outcomes.
Yeah, nice. There's been a lot of talk recently about the importance of strong relationships in coaching, I guess. So it's fantastic to hear that you've been able to utilise some of your skills in that mental health area in your coaching. And I know, obviously, looking at the Olympics recently, you saw the antics of Dean Boxall, the swimming coach, really going off, and there was a lot of talk about the relationships he had with his swimmers, and I guess the time he invests in those relationships as well. So that's really interesting to hear. So thanks for that. In recent years, we've seen more women coaching in traditionally male sports or dominated sports, which is fantastic. However, most of the women tend to be coaching female teams. you've started coaching males from the outset, looking at your CV. So what made you go straight into coaching males initially?
So, I mean, for me, you have to look at female statistics in coaching in rugby union. So right now there are 5 females in Australia who sit above a level 3. I'm obviously one of them. And when I decided that I was going to take on coaching in, I guess, a more productive or professional manner, there was no females for me to learn from. There was no role model for me at all. So it's made sense to me that I would focus on the male pathway because there was this wealth of knowledge and experience that I could tap into. I was really fortunate, actually, to have some really great male coaches, especially in Queensland, who have supported me through that and really taken that time to nurture me as a coach and give me their knowledge, but give me the opportunity as well to progress as a coach and to learn, and just have actual belief in me that I can do it. So, I mean, even if you look at Super W over the last couple of weeks, there was 15 coaches there across the 5 teams, and only 3 of them were female. So that's, it's something that we need to work through as a community and just embrace that a little bit more. So I think for me, I guess what my legacy is I've learned from my male counterparts, and then I can take that knowledge and then impart it onto the next generation of female coaches and players transitioning into coaching in the coming years. Yeah,
fantastic. That sounds really, really good. So I guess one of the questions I had was, have you had any issues from men who doubted your ability? I mean, it sounds like you had some really, really good male peers in your journey, but have you had any doubters that have basically said she can't do it, she's a woman, they can't coach?
Every day.
Yeah.
every day. Still, even now, it's a constant uphill battle. I've had coaches refuse to shake my hand. I've had coaches ask me if I'm the manager, or actually the most common question that I get asked when I'm coaching is, am I a physio? Which I'm not. But you have to sort of just take that in your stride. And like I said before, there just aren't any female coaches, so it's still taboo.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can break down those barriers is to actually be a visible presence. When I first started coaching in senior men's rugby and in GPS rugby, there were lots of people who said they will never let you do it. You're never going to get that opportunity.
Oh, wow.
It sort of sits in this space that's still a little bit behind, I guess, the times and some of the other sports, some of the other codes. And I believe in hard work, and I believe solidly in asking for opportunities. And for me, if I want something, I'll work hard to get it. And if that means that I stand on the sideline and I say, "Can I observe your training sessions so I can learn?" then that's what I'm going to do to be better. But it's definitely been challenging being the only female in the space for a really long time. But at the same time, it's really worth it, because for those young men that I coach, they don't know any different. Like, to them, I'm not a female coach. To them, I'm just their coach. Like, I'm just like anybody else. And my success rate in that space is as good as my male counterparts. And, and that's what really matters, is the rapport that I have with my athletes and the fact that, I'm having successful outcomes. So I think, sort of the proof is in the pudding, and eventually my gender just will no longer be applicable.
No. And is there any advice that you'd give to, you talked about taking some of that information that you'd learned and passing it on to other up and coming female coaches? What advice would you give to other female coaches who are looking to coach males in any sport, not just rugby, in any sport?
I would say, know your self-worth. Don't expect opportunities, ask for opportunities. And you need to not be the exception, you need to be exceptional. And part of being exceptional is having the courage when it becomes too much and you want to give up, to pick yourself up again and keep moving forward, and to go, okay, you know what, you really love this is worth it. And if you just keep trying, you'll eventually get there. the only reason people don't achieve their goals or their outcomes is because they stop trying.
Yeah. And I think a lot of coaches go through periods where they doubt themselves, or they doubt their abilities, and they question their worth.
I had one of those this week. 100%. So
I go through those periods all the time. So it's definitely an issue for all coaches, and as you said, it's just something about coaches also tend to be very resilient people, and we tend to be able to pick ourselves up and say, you know what, I'm questioning myself now, but the important thing is, if you're questioning yourself, then you're, I guess, striving to get better, and you're putting pressure on yourself to be better and to be a better coach, or a better person. So that's I guess a really good quality to have. You've coached both males and females. What are some things that you've noticed about, or some differences, I guess, you've noticed about coaching like male athletes and female athletes?
Well, some of it is game IQ, and just the fact that a lot of our female athletes haven't been in the game as long as our male counterparts. So you can get a normal female club rugby team that might have a Wallaroo in it, and might have a couple of Super W players, and then it might have a girl who's, just rocked up that Thursday night and wants to give it a crack. Whereas in a Premier Colts team or a Colts 1 team, a lot of those boys have been playing since they were 6. And so, you can say to that winger, look, I don't want you to graduate in past that 15-metre channel. Stick to your position. Whereas with some of our female athletes, they require that little bit more explanation. And they're very much a seeing is believing demographic. So when I'm working with females, I will always demonstrate first. And then with any athletes, you're always going to check understanding. But sometimes they just require that little bit more. And I think it's wrong as coaches to just think that people automatically understand what you're trying to convey to them. You can say, oh, look, this is what I want you to do, but why do I want you to do it? This is why I want you to do it. This is how we're going to do it. This is the law that connects it all together. And then being able to show our female athletes those progressions is really, really important, because once they've put it together, then they're going to get best possible outcomes in the field. And that's the primary difference that I've personally found. It might be different for other people who work primarily in that female demographic, but my own personal experience is just been that, at this point in time, where females are relatively new to the space, they just need that little bit more time to grasp some of the concepts that, these guys would have got as little kids, as under 10s learning lineouts for the first time, or, when they're under 8s and they've got a 3-man scrum, they're pushing for the first time. So all these little bits and pieces that sort of come together as you age through rugby, some of these girls just don't have yet. Yeah. And that's what it is. But also it's the way females interact differently with each other than young men do. The way they socialize is different, and they are very much a seeing as believing group. So, having a female coach in that space for them is great, because they can look at me and go, okay, well, I know that Beth Whaanga was a halfback. She might not have been the best halfback in the world, but she was still that. She was me, and now she's this, and they can see visible pathway. And it's the same with game plan. So if they can see progression, they're always going to come out better.
Yeah. I've also coached in both the male and female space, and I guess one of the things I really enjoyed about coaching females was there was a real keen interest to listen and to learn and ask questions and really gauge understanding. Whereas males, there tend to be a lot more ego involved, and a lot of the time, a lot of the males that I've coached had also had this belief, and probably, as you said, they started playing when they were 6 years old. They already knew it all, and they didn't need to hear it again. So,
I've definitely found that as well. So, and so some of that is peer interaction as well. So if you look at it from that sort of cultural demographic, and how, or gender specific behaviors as well, how men don't necessarily, they tend to be that little bit more, it sounds terrible me saying this out loud, but they tend to be that little bit more ego driven than females. And so they have that little bit of pride in expressing that lack of knowledge and understanding, and they don't want to be seen as I guess substandard by their teammates when they're not. The fact that they're actually asking those questions and they're checking for understanding actually makes them better players.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's actually a strength. It's not a weakness at all. But still, there's that little bit of a perception that if I'm asking those questions, the boys might give me shit.
Yeah.
So yeah.
100%. It's a very different huddle when you ask a male group, are there any questions, compared to if you ask a female group, are there any questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah, big time. So, Beth, you mentioned you're a level 3 rugby union coach. What are your long-term goals in the sport?
It's a tricky question. It's a tricky question. You're like the second person that has asked me this week. What I'm looking at doing, because I've just got down to Sydney. I guess where I'm looking at the moment is some space and shoot shield would sort of be my natural progression. But obviously I'm still sort of looking towards Wallaroos eventually, maybe even one day Super Rugby, who knows. But yeah, right now sort of breaking into the Sydney space and getting myself into a club down here and just, making a new community with the move is where I'm at. So yeah, right now I'm sort of looking at that shoot shield space.
Awesome. Well, best of luck with that.
Thank you.
I know that, as I think I mentioned to you once over LinkedIn, it'd be nice to either coach alongside you or coach against you one day at that shoot shield level.
Yeah, I like that.
Beth, in 2019, you joined the AIS High Performance Coaching Talent Program, alongside some prominent coaches from a variety of sports. Can you tell me a little bit about that program, what you learned and came away with?
It's funny. I was chatting to this group of women about an hour ago, and we have a group chat that we still all bounce off ideas off each other, and we're really supportive of each other. And I went into that group as the only female who was coaching in the men's space, and everyone else there was coaching women. And it was really eye-opening for me, because as a female, I thought I knew what it was like to be a female coach. The truth was I'd kind of had it luckier than a lot of other women. Like I said earlier, I'd had some really strong role models and mentors in the men's space, and I had been given opportunities that a lot of those women had worked harder than I had for. So for me, it was really, really eye-opening, and it made me question, was I actually doing enough for women in sport? Was I actually being my authentic self? Did I truly understand some of the obstacles that existed around the women's space? And the truth was that I didn't. I didn't quite understand them on that one-on-one level, because I just hadn't experienced it the way that they had. It drove me to really sort of start working more in that female space and to start advocating more for women and female athletes, and to become more involved in that female space, because initially I was pretty closed off to it. But as I got to know these women, and they helped me understand some of the trials and tribulations that they'd been through as elite female coaches, and encouraged me to be my authentic self within that space, I really opened my eyes a lot and went, okay, well, I actually need to change, and I need to make a more conscious effort to be a more visible presence for young women in rugby, so that, when they do get to that stage where they do want to coach, that they don't feel like, oh no, I can't reach out to Beth, she's just sat in that men's space, or she's just been coaching schoolboys. And I wanted them to be able to identify with me. And so that's been really important. That's something that I've worked on a lot over the last 3 years, is being more identifiable to these young women and giving them that visible pathway, so that they know and can acknowledge that they have support around them.
Fantastic. And were there any coaches, I guess, that you met in that program that really stood out for you as either brilliant practitioners, or I guess peers that you could learn a lot from?
They are all outstanding. They are all outstanding women. It's a little intimidating sometimes being in that group, because you go, oh, actually, am I good enough to be here? But I mean, I have a long standing friendship with Alana Thomas now from the Melbourne Rebels, and Alana is definitely my conscience and my sounding board. And I never had anyone, like I never had another female rugby friend before, or another female coach that I could bounce ideas off of. And having Alana in my corner like that is really good, because I'll ring her every couple of days and I'll say, well, what do you think about this? Or have you heard about this? Or, you know, am I going to get in trouble for saying this? And she's been a really strong presence for me and a really good sounding board. And I'm really fortunate to have had her I guess she's a mentor and a friend to me in the rugby space. But, you know, there's also amazing women like, you know, Trini Power, who's just come off the Hockey Roos, and there's Beck Goddard, who's fighting really hard in the AFLW space. And, you know, we've got Em Carney, who's fighting to make triathletes better. And, you know, Michelle Cowan over in WA, who, when I got over there a couple of months ago, we sat down and had a coffee, and, you know, she made sure that the couple of months that I was over there, that I felt safe and secure, and that I had support network out there. So, you know, this group of women is truly outstanding. And I definitely wouldn't be the person that I am, not just coach, or the person I am, without their influence. I mean, they're truly inspirational.
It's fantastic. Well, that's really interesting to hear. And some of those names, I guess, are over at Tokyo at the moment and doing some great things in sports. So would have been a really interesting opportunity to join that program, I'd say. So
yeah,
would have learned a lot and met a lot of interesting people. In recent years, women's sports have really grown in Australia. There's always room for it to grow more, but the Matildas now have household names such as Sam Kerr. The Aussie Sevens have girls like Charlotte Caslick. The AFLW, Super W and NRLW are all being beamed across our televisions during primetime periods now. How much growth is there left in women's sport? Where do you see it going in the future? Are we going to see it rivaling men's sport, do you think? Or what are your thoughts?
I think there is a huge amount of growth left in women's sport. In so many facets. Women's sport will definitely compete with men's sport. It's already competing. However, there are still those discrepancies within female sport, obviously around pay and sponsorship, and some of the opportunities that they don't necessarily get over their male counterparts. But those are things that we're still trying to improve and that we're working hard to achieve. I mean, if you look at the girls who went to Super W this year, they are semi-professional athletes, and they took, 14 days off work and 14 days away from their family for a commercial product that they're not actually being paid a wage for. So a lot of those women experience significant financial hardship because of that, or loss, plus time away from their regular jobs, plus time away from their families, whereas their male counterparts don't experience that. And so, that's the big difference in rugby at the moment. If you look at Super W and Super Rugby and that discrepancy there, and, obviously I understand that what goes into the male counterparts is quite significant. And, the sponsorships and the training, and, I've obviously worked in that high performance space for quite some time. But that can only change if we make it change, and giving those women the opportunity to play as professionals and to have the same coaching opportunities and the same financial opportunities as their male counterparts will improve the quality of the game. It'll improve the amount of people who come and watch those games. It will put bums on seats. And eventually, like long-term, that discrepancy will dissipate. But, nothing changes without change.
What's been one of your most memorable moments as a coach?
I was thinking about this earlier. I think there's 3 moments for me, actually.
Yeah.
So I was the first woman in 30 years. You were just talking about GPS rugby. I was the first woman to ever be appointed as a head coach for a GPS rugby team. and I coached at a co-ed school like you
Yeah,
did
yeah,
at Brisbane State High School,
yeah.
and was given that opportunity and had 4 back-to-back undefeated seasons there. Literally my whole Brisbane State High School team just made Med East, and they were the starting 15, which is
Yeah.
really fantastic. And then I also coached in the girls program there as well. So I had a whole massive age group of male and female athletes at that school. And as a head coach for both the male and female groups, it removed all the gender from it altogether. And I ended up running a lot of the girls with the boys, and their contact work obviously they didn't do contact work against each other, but their skills got better because they played a lot with their male counterparts, and instead of becoming 2 separate groups, it became one age group, which was really amazing. And I'll always be grateful to Brisbane State High School for giving me that opportunity to prove that I could do it. So I was at Gregory Terrace earlier in the year as well, and Gregory Terrace was the same as me in Brisbane. They just saw me as a coach, and they gave me those opportunities. But then another one would be, I was over in Perth working at a Western Force game, and we were playing against the Rebels, and I was sitting with Hodjo in the box, and there was a young man warming up on the sideline. And the young man turned and looked at me, and I looked at him, and it was Glenn Vahu. And I had a lot of input into this young man in a coaching space since he was about 14. And he ran out in Perth and made his debut while I was there. And
that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I went out onto the field afterwards, and we had all these COVID restrictions, and all I wanted to do was give this young man a hug. And we were standing like, he's social distancing, and he goes, "I'm so happy you're here, and that somebody from home was here to see me play tonight." And I was like, I'm just so proud that I was one of the coaches that got to have input into this kid, because there's so many coaches have input into young men like this and young women like this. And but he said to me at the time, he was like, I wouldn't be the player that I am without you. And that for me was a defining moment. It was one of those light bulb moments where I went, actually, I'm doing a good job. And it's something that I'm not ever going to forget. And then you were just talking about Tokyo, and I had a lot of input into a young woman called Madison Levi.
Yep.
And I spent a lot of time advocating for her. People refer to her as her and her sister Tegan as my rugby daughters. She continued to do one-on-one work with me over the last 3-4 years, and she made her debut in Tokyo this week and scored 2 tries. And there was me at work in my office, jumping up and down like a crazy person, and her mum's texting me, and I'm texting her mum, and I was just so proud of her and just so happy for her that she got to achieve that goal. And a few weeks before, I just flown back from Perth, and she and I were sitting at East, and we were watching the first Super Rugby game Super W game, between New South Wales and Queensland. And Maddie said to me, I've gone and got my COVID shots just in case I get called up for the Olympics.
Yeah, great.
And I turned to her and I went, darling, I don't doubt it for a second. If you don't get to go this time, you'll get to go next time. And then a couple of days later, she just sent me this picture of her with this massive plane ticket going, look. And I was, it's just those little things for me, those memorable moments as a coach where, I might be one person out of the 20 people that contribute to that young person's career or outcomes, but it's just amazing to see them achieve their goals. And that's what I find rewarding is watching them achieve that and knowing that I gave them that little bit of time with me, and I hope that they value that time that they had with me and that they enjoyed it. And it's what makes me tick.
And looking at the joy it brings you, talking about those couple of young players. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about relationships before, and you can see the joy that their success has brought you as a coach. Mm-hmm. Just shows the level of relationships you've built with them over the years, and what it means to you with their success. It's great seeing a young up and coming athlete go on and represent at that highest level, and without trying to put yourself on a pedestal, you sort of, it's, have this quiet like feeling inside.
Yeah.
I played a little part. It might have been a really small part, or it might have been a really big part, but you played a part, and it's I think it's a really rewarding for coaches at all levels, whether it be the under sixes coach see, their little under sixes player in 15 years time progress, or if it's, you've been coaching them at the, 18 or 19 year olds, and they're progressing. It's really exciting to see and really rewarding. Fantastic. Maddie came from, had a AFL background as well, didn't she? Or she just played multiple sports?
She just plays multiple coach. She's just, Maddie Levi is the most exceptional athlete. She AFLW. She went to state for running and athletics.
Yeah, she looks very quick.
Yeah, she is. She's exceptional. And, she had a couple of broken ankles a few years ago. She was worried she wouldn't run the same, but once she's got that ball in her hand, she's just off like a light. So, she's really fantastic.
Yeah, I was hoping there was a couple of times they could have got the ball to her a little bit quicker, and she would have just gassed her opponents. And losing those 2 games on the second day by 2 points each game by just a conversion, it was a hard pill to swallow, I guess. And the girls must have felt that way as well. So moving on, looking at your CV, you've coached some Indigenous teams as well in the past, and you're currently working in that space as well. Tell me a little bit about some of the Indigenous athletes that you've coached and what they might bring to the sport of rugby union.
So I do a lot of work with Lloydies, with the Lloyd McDermott Foundation, with Dean Duncan, and I have been involved in that probably for about 5 or 6 years now, where I'm always willing to give my time to these young people, as is Mahalia Murphy. I've done quite a bit of work with Mahalia with this group as well. And I think that we have the most amazing resource in our Indigenous players in Australia. And these kids, they just love sport. And sometimes they just need the opportunity and someone to help them. Yeah. And I find giving those kids that opportunity to be really rewarding. I mean, I personally, I'm not Indigenous, but my children, they're Māori. So for me, having, my children be from an Indigenous culture, I feel that affinity and that want for Indigenous cultures to succeed and to have some of the opportunities that some of their other players in other areas have, especially the kids, who are in regional areas, especially like up in North Queensland or up the top of WA, that don't necessarily get down into these metro areas to play club footy or to have that, those competitive games. And so working with the Lloyd McDermott Foundation to, get involved with their camps or Junior Gold Cup or, national sevens, and having that opportunity to help them progress and just get a better skill set, but also just to show people how talented they are, and that they just love it. And they're the best kids. Like they really appreciate everything they have, and they show such love, and they have such connection to their family and their culture. And for me, that's the most wonderful thing, to experience that with them, and to be accepted into that space, into their space. For me, as a non-Indigenous person, I feel very privileged to be allowed to do that. And to be honest, there is nothing that I wouldn't do for this group. And I hope to keep that relationship with Lloydies and to keep working with them for a really long time. Obviously,
the Indigenous athletes are really heavily involved in AFL and NRL. We see some really elite Indigenous athletes, and probably not as many in rugby union. What could rugby union do a little bit better to try and attract some of those really top athletes into our game? Because I think, a Latrell Mitchell playing in the Wallaby, fantastic for our game, and also, I guess, encouraging more Indigenous kids to play rugby union. I think that we're doing an okay job. I think we try really hard, and some of it's a resourcing problem as well.
and this sort of ability to get out into that community. But we do have people who really advocate really hard for it. Like I mentioned, Dean Duncan earlier, and players like Mahalia Murphy, who donate, huge amounts of their time. And a lot of that is that seeing is believing factor, and something that the AFL and the NRL do well is spending time out in those communities and extended periods of time and continuously going out there. And I think that's something that we could do better is visiting these communities and putting in time and effort into it. We had the First Nations People Rugby program a couple of years ago that was just run so brilliantly, and I was really disappointed when that stopped happening, because so many people had fought so hard to give those Indigenous kids those opportunities, and then they'd done legwork, and they travelled out to these communities and really fought hard to have them involved, and to now lose some of those kids to other codes is really disappointing. But also with the effects of COVID and I guess having no community sport for quite some time, it has put a bit of a stop to some of that funding and those resources that, 18 months, 2 years ago would have been more readily available. So I think once COVID settles and things start to return back to normal, then that's going to be a space that rugby can start looking into again and start travelling out to these communities and really working hard just to get these kids back involved. And a lot of that is that seeing is believing factor, the same as it is with any demographic. You need to have somebody who you can relate to. So I think that will hopefully change soon. But I do know that there are definitely people who are still working very, very, very hard to engage our Indigenous community. And I really applaud that work that they're doing, because, we wouldn't even have some of the athletes that we currently have without those people's hard work.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Okay. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Are there any young up and coming Indigenous kids in the either the male or female space that you think need to keep our ears out for, or our eyes out for in the future?
There is a young woman on the Gold Coast, and her name is Brianna Raymond, and she is a fierce athlete. She is quick over the ball, and her contact work is brilliant, and she runs like a dream. She's definitely somebody to watch out for. She's just turned 18, and I've been lucky enough to work with her quite a bit over the years, and she's a cheeky little thing, but she is very, very, very talented, and I can't wait to see how she goes.
Awesome. Well, I'll keep my ears out for her, and hopefully I'll see her on the seventh stage or 15.
I hope so. Yeah. Oh, she would say sevens, but I want her to play 15. She would be the best flanker ever. Okay. She's
nice. Nice. All right, that leads me, I guess, to my last question, or my last set of questions. You've coached both sevens and 15s. What do you prefer to coach, the 15-a-side traditional game or sevens?
I'm a 15s girl through and through. Okay. I love 15s. I coach forwards. There's something about 15. It's something to do with scrum, I think, and a line out with me. Like I said, I'm a solid forwards coach. I've been really lucky to have people like Grant Dory and Todd Ikeffi sort of pump that into me over the last few years. And I really enjoy the phase play and stuff with 15s as well. And the contact. I love the contact. So that's always been my preference, 15s. But personally, when I'm playing, I like playing sevens because I like the space. Nice. I guess from that question, at the elite level, there's two variations have almost become separate sports. You've got your elite sevens pathway and your elite 15s pathway, and we don't see a lot of crossover. We see a little bit during the COVID period. We saw a couple of players go from sevens to 15s and Super Rugby and vice versa, but it's not something we see regularly. If there are any player either in the 15s game that you think would make either a fantastic sevens player or vice versa, a fantastic sevens player that you'd love to see in the 15s game, who would that be? And can you think of a male and a female athlete in that space? So I'd probably do it the opposite way around. I'd go Tate McDermott. I would love to see Tate McDermott play sevens. He's not your traditional halfback, and I've known Tatey for a long time, since he was about 16, I think. Yeah. And he sees space well, and he utilises, and his footwork is brilliant, and he's got a great long pass. And I think that watching Tate play sevens would be pretty great. Obviously, Mahalia Murphy crosses between not just 15s and sevens brilliantly, but across codes.
Even NRLW, hey.
Yeah, she's really fantastic at it. But I'd really like to see Charlotte Caslick sitting out back at 15. I think that she would be a fantastic fullback. The way she sweeps in sevens and utilises and sees space would be great in 15s. And she did that well as well when she crossed over into that NRL space. So, but on a less professional space, I'd like to see Tegan Levi. He's just been drafted from the Gold Coast. He's just been drafted for the the AFLW for the Gold Coast Suns. She plays sevens at a high level as well, like her sister Maddie. Mm-hmm. But I would love to see her play 15s. I would love to see her as a Wallaroo. She would be outstanding.
Okay. What position would she fit into?
She would be my other flanker. So I'd have Brianna at 6 and I'd have Tegan at 7.
Nice.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. Well, Beth, it's almost been an hour of your time. I'm really appreciative of the time you've given me today to have a chat, and I think we've covered quite a few different topics around the women's coaching space, Indigenous athletes, and just rugby coaching generally. So I really appreciate your time today, Beth.
Thank you.
And best of luck with I know at the moment we've got a bit of a COVID lockdown, so there's not much coaching going on, but
there's no coaching.
I guess in the meantime, keep learning, keep progressing, keep that contact with some of those coaches that you talked about being involved with. And I look forward to crossing paths with you on the rugby field in 2022.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. You too.